Eerie wind howls softly. A single, slow piano note hangs in the air. Have you ever heard of a house that refuses to die? A place so scarred by tragedy that it literally rebuilds itself from its own ashes. Deep in the misty moorlands of Devon, there's a legend whispered by locals about a place they call Ashcombe Manor. Nearly 100 years ago, it was a grand estate, the heart of the countryside. But one horrific night, it was burned to the ground. Now, they say that every time the moon is full, the manor returns, perfectly rebuilt, perfectly silent, waiting. And anyone who dares to step inside never comes back the same. The story begins in the autumn of 1923. The mistress of the manor, a woman named Eleanor Blackwood, descended into madness one stormy night. No one knows for sure what broke her. Some say she was cursed. Others whisper she lost her mind after the tragic death of a young child. But what happened next is burned into local memory. She locked her family inside the house, sealed every door and window, and set the entire estate ablaze. Villagers who saw the inferno swore they saw her standing at the highest window, a ghostly smile on her face as the flames swallowed her and her home whole. When the fire finally died out, nothing was left but a skeleton of ash and charred stone. For decades, the ruins were a place of dread. Farmers claimed very ground felt unnaturally hot, even in the dead of winter. It was as if the fire never truly went out. Then, in 1987, the legend took a chilling new turn. A farmer, driving his truck late one night, saw something impossible. There, on the hill where only ruins should be, stood the house, fully rebuilt, glowing softly under the pale light of the full moon. He said candles flickered in every window, and he could have sworn he heard the faint, melancholic sound of a piano playing from inside. He must have been seeing things, he told himself. But when he returned the next morning, his blood ran cold. There was nothing there. Just the same old ashes, cold and still. Over the years, the legend grew. People called it the house that rebuilt itself. A mirage, a trick of the moonlight. Or was it Eleanor Blackwood, eternally calling for company? This mystery was too compelling for a young history student named Clara Wynne to ignore. In 2023, she decided she would be the one to finally uncover the truth. She'd grown up in the nearby village, where her grandmother would warn her in hushed tones, never go near Ashcombe after dark. But Clara wasn't a believer in ghosts. She believed in evidence, in proof. So, on the night of the October full moon, she packed her high-definition camera, her laptop, and gathered 3 of her closest friends. Together, they drove out into the desolate moorlands of Devon. They arrived just before the stroke of midnight. A thick, silvery fog rolled over the hills, muffling all sound. The air grew still, unnaturally still. The ruins looked exactly as they should. A collection of charred walls, broken stones, and twisted weeds. Clara set up her camera on a tripod and let out a nervous laugh. Looks like the ghost forgot her builder's tools. Her friend Ben joked, trying to lighten the mood. But as the town clock chimed 12 in the distant valley, everything changed. A low hum started to vibrate through the ground beneath their feet. The ashes on the ground began to shimmer with an eerie, internal light. And then, one by one, the walls began to rise. It wasn't like construction. It was like watching a memory being rebuilt. The manor assembled itself piece by piece, glowing faintly as if it were alive. Within minutes, the house stood whole again. Its windows were polished. Its dark oak roof was perfectly restored, and a soft, inviting candlelight glowed from within. The air, which moments before smelled of damp earth, was now filled with the scent of old wood, smoke, and a faint hint of rose perfume. Clara and her friends stood frozen, paralyzed by a sight that defied all logic. And then they heard it, a faint, echoing melody from a piano, drifting out through the fog. It was the same haunting tune that Eleanor Blackwood was said to play on the night she burned her family alive. Clara lifted her camera, her voice a trembling whisper. Are you getting this?" Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the camera steady, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. She pushed against the heavy front door, and it creaked open. Inside, the air was warm, too warm. It didn't feel like a ghost's ruin. It felt like a home that someone had just left moments ago. The floral wallpaper was pristine. The silverware on a nearby table gleamed in the candlelight. Portraits of the Blackwood family lined the hallway, their painted eyes dark and watchful, seeming to follow Clara as she stepped further inside. She could almost hear whispers caught between the brush strokes on the canvas. They found themselves in the grand dining hall. The long table was set for dinner. 4 plates, 4 glasses, 4 empty seats. The exact number of people in Clara's group. One of her friends, Lydia, stepped closer to the table, her breath catching in her throat. "Clara, look." Carved deep into the fine porcelain of each plate were their names. Clara, Ben, Lydia, Tom. The air went ice cold in an instant. And then the piano started again. This time, the melody was clearer, closer, as if the instrument was in the next room. The keys seemed to press themselves down, slow and deliberate. The old walls of the house groaned, a deep, resonant sound, as though the building itself was taking a breath. From the dark corners of the dining room, wisps of fire began to rise. They didn't burn the walls or the furniture. Instead, they swirled and coalesced, shaping into the ethereal outline of a woman. Her face was pale as bone, her eyes glowing like hot embers. It was Eleanor Blackwood. She smiled, a sad, lonely expression. "I've waited so long," she said, her voice soft as smoke. "So long for a family to dine with me again." Clara tried to back away, to run, but the heavy front door slammed shut behind them with a deafening boom. The house groaned louder, the spectral fire rising to surround the dining table, trapping them. Eleanor tilted her head, her voice a chilling whisper. "All I want is to finish the meal we never had." The very last thing Clara's camera recorded was Eleanor reaching out a hand across the table, her fingers made of shimmering flame, her face flickering between that of a beautiful woman and a creature of ash and sorrow. Then, the feed cut to static. The next morning, the police found the ruins just as they always work, lifeless and covered in morning dew. There was no sign of Clara or her friends, but in the center of the ash-filled foundation, there were 4 perfectly clean, unburned plates. Each was carved with a name and the date of the previous night. When the investigators reviewed the fragmented footage from Clara's camera, they found only chilling snippets. The lonely sound of the piano, disembodied whispers in the dark, and one final, terrifying moment before the recording ended. Eleanor's face turns directly toward the lens, her amber-like eyes staring into the soul of whoever was watching, and she whispers, "See you next full moon." Since that night, the ruins of Ashcombe Manor have become a forbidden place. The locals will tell you that on nights when the moon is full, if you're brave or foolish enough to drive past the old grounds, you can still see candlelight flickering where the house once stood. And sometimes, carried on the wind, you can hear the faint, heartbreaking sound of a piano drifting through the mist. No one ever stays to find out more, because they say the house still remembers every visitor, and it always wants them to come home. Piano melody plays softly, then fades. A faint, ghostly whisper echoes, "Welcome back." Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey. If you enjoy stories that explore the dark corners of our world, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more mysteries. Stay safe and stay curious.